Okay, everyone, so let's just get right back into this second part. We left off talking about hate crimes, and now we are going to talk about, finish off talking about identity theft and other forms of cyber victimization, as well as some of the theories that we come across when it comes to victimization and the sort. So identity theft and other forms of cyber victimization. Identity theft is the use of someone else's personal information without their permission to fraudulently obtain goods and services. This can range from a criminal's short-term use of a stolen or a lost credit card to the long-term use of a person's complete biographical information, this information being the person's name, the person's social security number, and other identifying factors to clone the victim's identity and to commit multiple crimes that may be attributed to the victims. Ways in which a criminal can gain access to personal information of others is through purchasing or buying that information. I personally have been victim of that. You could steal it. You can also get it from an unwary victim, someone who's just unaware that, you know, sending certain information through the mail or through an email or giving it to anyone, specifically those that you shouldn't give it to, can potentially lead to you getting your identity stolen or identity theft. Identity theft shouldn't be twisted, or you should not compare it to phishing. Phishing involves thieves casting out thousands of fraudulent emails into the cyber pond, asking for personal information and waiting for somebody to actually bite. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, notes that they have received more than 300,000 complaints in 2017, and that victim losses to cybercrime amounted to more than 1.4 billion that year. Okay. 40% of recipients of one fraudulent bank email did believe it to actually be true. This was found in a study by Shateri in 2006. I do still think that there are still people who are falling for these fraudulent bank emails, although I don't think it is as much, because everything is computerized and people, I hope, would have become well versed, but then again, you never know. A victim may also literally be scared into providing their information. You should be aware of Nigerian frauds. The most notorious phishers are the so-called Nigerian frauds run by Nigerian organized crime groups. Emails have been received by millions of people all over the world. A small number of people fall for it. These people are the first asked to send a small amount of money, perhaps about $200 or less, to cover expenses, but are suckered into sending ever larger amounts as complications arise. Some of the more gullible have even been lured to Nigeria with their cash and have been killed, okay? Now getting into some of the victimization theories. So a couple of things before we get into the actual theories themselves. You should know that there is no systematic way to evaluate events of victimization from a victimology perspective. Victimization can occur at any time or any place without warning. You should also be aware that victimizing events are not random or unpredictable. Victims are now seen as individuals who in some way, knowingly or unknowingly, passively or actively influence their victimization. And then, let's get to the victimization theories, okay? So hopefully you guys can hear this and the volume didn't just turn off on me. But victimization precipitation theory, victim precipitation theory. The basic premise of this theory is that by acting in certain provocative ways, some individuals initiate a chain of events that lead to their victimization. It's most contentious when it's applied to rape victims, specifically in the 1971 Amir study, okay? The Menach Amir study of police records found that 19% of forcible rapes were supposedly caused by the victim actually precipitating, so the victim actually causing it. So again, this is a 1971 study. We are sure that this has changed in 2020, okay? And here, again, this is a figure. Do not just bypass the figures that you see in your book. This one specifically is male victimization rates by number of risk factors for delinquency. And this, you can actually find an explanation of it on page 56 in your textbook. Figure 3.10 is talking about a longitudinal Pittsburgh and Denver study of delinquency factors. They are looking at socioeconomic status, SES, single parent households, hyperactivity, impulsiveness, and drug use. It showed that these factors predicted victimization, okay? As seen, overall, 50% of seriously violent delinquents were themselves violently victimized compared with 10% of non-delinquents from the same neighborhood, okay? So you can pause and take a look at that. Again, you could read page 56 and to view the same exact table on page 57, okay? Routine activities / lifestyle theory. So routine activity theory stresses that criminal behavior takes place via the interaction of 3 variables that reflect individuals' everyday routine activities. The first variable is the presence of a motivated offender or offenders. The second variable is the availability of a suitable target or targets. And the third variable is the absence of capable guardian or guardians. The basic idea of lifestyle theory is that there are certain lifestyles or routine activities that disproportionately expose some people to higher risk of victimization or for victimization. Okay. So is victimology blaming the victim? Crime prevention tips and strategies are ignored at our peril. So for example, we all agree that we should be able to leave our cars unlocked, sleep with the windows open in the summer, leave our doors unlocked, frequent any bar we choose, or walk down an alley in a neighborhood at any time we please, but we can't, okay? Common sense demands that we take steps we can, okay, to safeguard ourselves and our property in this imperfect world. Avoid certain places, dress sensibly, don't provoke, take reasonable precautionary measures, and don't drink too much if you would want to avoid victimization. Victimologists simply remind us that complete innocence and full responsibility lie on a continuum. Okay. The consequences of victimization. There are physical and psychological consequences of victimization. When it comes to physical consequences, there's lifelong pain from wounds, personal disability that might arise. In terms of psychological consequences, there's the feeling of shock, personal vulnerability, anger, and the fear of further victimization and suspicion of others. There's also the feeling of depression that might arise, guilt, self-blame, and lowered self-esteem and self-efficacy, insomnia, so the lack of sleep. When it comes to specifically rape trauma, okay, there's a shock, there's the anger and depression that typically afflicts rape victims, okay? Victimization in the criminal justice system. So in 2004, the Senate passed the Victim Bill of Rights. Although these rights apply only to victims of federal crimes, all 50 states have implemented constitutional amendments or bills guaranteeing similar rights. We owe much of this increased attention to victims, of this increased attention to victim issues to women's rights movement, as well as the feminist criminologists that we have out here, okay? And just because I say feminist criminologists doesn't mean those feminists aren't men. So feminist ideologies is what I'm referring to, okay? And lastly, victim offender reconciliation programs, VORPs, okay? This is the bringing together of a victim and an offender in a face-to-face meeting of some sort, mediated by a person trained in mediation theory and practices. Meetings are voluntary for both the offender and the victim. Benefits for victims, though, can be that they gain the opportunity to make offenders aware of their feelings of personal violation and loss, and to lay out their proposals of how offenders can restore the situation. There are also certain benefits for the offender. They are afforded the opportunity to see firsthand the pain that they have caused their victims, and perhaps even express some form of remorse or any remorse that they may feel. When it comes to victim offender reconciliation programs, furthermore, it's used often in the juvenile system, but rarely used for personal violent crimes in either juvenile or adult systems. And lastly, one of the last things that I do want to say is that it does not suit all victims, especially those who feel that the wrong done cannot be so easily put right, and they want the offender punished, okay? So that's the end of chapter 3, okay? I will be uploading chapter 4 for you this week as well. So check out chapter 4 if you have time or if you choose to do so. So I will see you guys later.